Hi folks, CodeTutor here and my name is Anil Deshpande. Hi guys, welcome to the another video of CICD in Android series. In the previous video, we went through how to really write a Android CICD reliably. I basically explained it through a structure of staircase model, and I did mention that some of the things that have been already covered will not be covered as a part of this CICD series. And we will get started with variants and flavors. Before we get started with variants and flavors, I want to just put a couple of disclaimers. If you are completely a newbie to Android application development, you have not written even a single hello world Android application, be it using Java or even with Kotlin, then this series is not for you. For those people, I have already other fundamentals series on Android application development using composables or even activity services. You can go through that. But this is for those who already know Android application development very well and now want to basically understand and master CI/CD in a proper way. So having said that, let's get down to what is build variants. If you have been doing Android development, you already know that there are usually two types of builds, that is debug and release. And then you might have also heard about words like flavors. How flavor is different from build types. And then you might have also heard about something called build variant. What are the differences between a build type, build flavor, and build variant, and when do we use what and when it makes sense to use one of these? That is what the focus will be in this video and in next couple of videos. So let me show you what do I mean by build type. So this is a sample application that I have created called as variant demo application, and if you see here, it has a main activity and I am displaying some information here: application ID, version name, and debug flag. And let me run this, and you can see here application ID, version name, and debug flag. So where are you getting this actually? If you go to the build Gradle KTS file, this is the application ID and this is the version name. And if you see here build variant, active build variant, it is showing as a debug, and when I ran, it actually created a type of build called as debug build. What do I mean by debug build? An application which can be debugged on the emulator. And if you just click on the drop down here, there is also option called as release. So release is another type of build which can't be debugged. Usually you use this release version for releasing it to the App Store. So in this case right now I am just running it locally on my machine, so I am fine with running it as a debug build. When it comes to build types, there are always only two types. One is debug and another one is release. You might be wondering, how is this able to pick up these values from the build Gradle file? Well, it is possible because we have enabled BuildConfig equals to true. That is the reason why it is able to pick it up in the main activity with the standard constants such as BuildConfig.application ID, version name, debug.toString, that is true or false. If I comment it out, then it will give you a compile time error. Let me show you. As you can see here, unresolved reference build config, because it is at the compile time that when you enable this particular build config.true, the Android compile system will create object of build config and gives it to the final bundle. And that is why it is important to enable this feature in the build features, so that you should be able to access the values in the application. Now let me just change to release and see whether I can run it. And you can see that you can't run it because if you observe, it shows a cross mark in this icon. Why is this? Well, if you go up here for the build type, you have to always sign the APK file, any build type, whether it is debug or whether it is release. The debug build type always gets signed by a debug digital key. But for the release, you have to specifically provide a release key. Because it is not provided, that is why it shows the cross mark. To make sure that you don't get this, you have to provide the key. Now, I don't want to waste my time creating the key, so I will just give the debug key itself to the release as well. But in reality, you will actually create a separate release key and give that as the option. So what I will do is sign config dot get by name debug. So that basically means now you can even sign the release build type with the debug key. And now let me go to the build variants, select the release, and now let me run this, and you should be able to see the debug flag equals to false. Earlier, when I ran default build type, which is debug, you might have seen that debug flag is equal to true. That is the main difference between a debug build type and release build type. So far so good. Now if you just go to the number of apps that have got installed here, it's only one app. But more often than not, when you are working in a team, you want to basically install both the release and debug build type at the same time, and you should be able to distinguish it. Right now, if you see here, whether you run it a build type of debug, it has the same application ID, and if you run it as a build type release, it has the same application ID. So when you are testing, you really don't know what you are testing. You are testing whether a release type or debug type. It is very important for the QA team and even for the development teams to know, just looking at the application, what type of app they are actually dealing with. So if we could just change the application ID to something that everybody can just quickly understand that it is a debug or it is a production variant, it becomes just easy to manage. Now, how do we do that? And that is what I will show you in a moment. Let me close this. What I will do is I will explicitly create a debug build, and here I will use applicationIdSuffix is equal to .debug. That means a .debug will be suffixed to the application ID, and then versionNameSuffix will have -debug. Is minified enabled, I will keep it false here as well, and for the release it is usually enabled to true because you want to basically reduce the overall size. But I will go ahead with the default value here. Before I run this, you might be wondering, why am I not adding the same thing to the release? For the release build types, you should not have any suffixes. You should have plain package name of the application. But to differentiate it between the release and debug, debug should have the suffixes. That is the reason why I have added this only to the debug section. And now let me sync this and run it. As you can see here, it is com.CodeTutor variant demo debug. And let me stop this and let me change it to release and let me run this. And now this doesn't have those suffixes. So if you are displaying this information somewhere in your app, it becomes very easy for the teams to understand which one is debug and which one is release. And now if I just close this and I search for variant, you can see that there are two apps installed with the same name. One is debug and another one is release. Being able to install two build types at the same time on the same device is a great option for the teams, because you can install both the applications side by side and check them whether there is any difference between the debug build and the release build. It solves one problem, but then it is not clear which app is which one until and unless you open the application and see the values. In the next video, we will just extend this more to make it easy and then also explore many other things. Stay tuned for the next video. Brings us to the end of this particular video. Don't forget to like, comment, share the video and subscribe to the channel. Take care. Bye.